So here's a recent Zoom conversation that I had with Gary Goldsmith where we spoke about the impact that lockdown is having on recruitment businesses and what recruitment businesses need to start doing to innovate and to be able to use this time wisely. We also, of course, speak about the importance of mental health during this time and why it's important that leaders and business owners and also employees over communicate during this time. So let's jump into the conversation. It was a fun one as well, as it always is with Gary. Enjoy this and hopefully you pull up some tips.
But no, I wanted to talk to you about recruitment businesses and just business in general and just kind of get your viewpoints on it. Obviously with the RDLC, you're working with a lot of recruitment owners. What's the biggest challenges you're seeing at the moment for recruitment businesses during this time?
So I'm working with over 300 recruitment business leaders. And if I just focus on them for a second, rather than their business, because, mate, it's really hard. I mean, it's we're in a state of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. and during this time, there's people that they're looking after themselves, they're looking after their family. That there's worry about their businesses. There's worry about what the business will look like going forward. But they've also got the stress and strain of having to support their entire business. So they've got people who are furloughed and are we doing it right? And the laws are changing. Can they get the cash through the door? How many of their people are surviving, not thriving through this? It's a really hard time. And I think people just always think, well, the boss is right, he's the one who's earning the money. And I always kind of think, don't think to think, they're the one that's actually supporting this, right? They're supporting me and what's going on. So the level of stress amongst that community is absolutely massive. In terms of recruitment coming through this, the business is going to be better by a long way.
Yeah.
So you've had an opportunity to look at all your op costs. You're a leaner business. You've looked at your ROI on absolutely everything and reduced it. So will your business have changed? But it should have changed anyway, because we're in a state of constant change. Everything that happened in 2020 and the sort of Q3 onwards of 19 was about change. So people were used to being quite agile, but at the moment it's everything you're doing, you're not reaping the rewards from the effort that you put in, because something else is changing. Now something else is changing.
Yeah.
It's a really, really tough time for people. And I sense it when I speak to the guys every day. And, we're all virtually hugging each other. It's like, you can't, when you're the boss of bosses, who do you go to for a bit of support? Tough. It's tough, bro. Really tough right now.
And you put a post out the other day, which was good. And this is something we're trying to do in terms of innovation, almost as a way, take this situation, relook at our business, and do something that actually we can come out of this stronger. And you put a post out as well saying that, recruitment businesses need to, as you just sort of mentioned, really kind of look at their business infrastructure, but also maybe change the way that they're doing stuff right now. So what kind of tips have you got maybe for recruitment businesses that can maybe, optimize this time?
Well, first, the builders are going off. Can you hear them?
I can't hear it. It's fine.
Oh, literally, they're going to hear me soon. Oh, thank you. Lovely.
Good old Monday morning treat.
So recruitment is dead as a word, and I've said that for ages. It was always about that migration to becoming a true consultancy. So it's based on outcome delivery. So recruiters out of this are going to get paid for their effort, not just their end goal results. So if people are really smart about this, they should be looking at statement of works and building out that as a product, productizing everything that they do. You should never work a job unless you've got an unfair advantage, and the minimum being an interview slots. But typically people are getting paid for outsourced in-house these days. Talent pooling. There's been a lot of work done with customers. So during this period of lockdown, we could empathize with people and their own frustrations. So what projects weren't getting done? When they go back to work, what's going to change in terms of their priorities? And how can we help organizations gain commercial advantage by going faster? So as long as people were aware of the commercial dynamic of their customers and could empathize with the guy sat at home, pulling his hair out because he can't do what the business is asking him to do. And typically in things like tech or a hiring manager, they're paid not to save money, they're paid to deliver projects. So how do we help them deliver the projects whilst they're in lockdown? And all of those played very much into our sweet spot, which was consultancy based. So remote interviewing and selection, remote onboarding. So as long as people were on that journey, it was quite easy for those businesses to, oh, I've got a drill out now. It's very, very easy for those businesses to sort of adapt to this moment in time. And people need to realise, so Marion Somerset-Webb, who's editor-in-chief of Money Week, again redressed that the economy isn't in recession, we're in a deep freeze. So coming up to this moment in time, the UK post-Brexit was in a really strong position. So we just need to realise as we come out of this, we go bang, we go at this. So making sure that you're product-based, you're driving the right drivers, and that you aren't sitting there doing the same old specking out CVs to clients who are sat at home, because that's not what they want. They want answers to problems. So it's consultancy.
And from an employee point of view, have you seen some businesses putting pressure on employees during this time to sort of hit targets, to sort of, you know, adapt to working from home quite quickly? Have you seen that? Maybe not amongst your guys, but you know, in general.
Yeah. But it's if people can work from home well and do the right level of activity still, whilst having toddlers running around and balancing their work life and watching the TV AM and still manage to deliver the right outcome, then potentially this is something that could be part of the business going forward. If people have gone at home and sat in front of loose women and done nothing, then probably they won't be given that luxury going forward. So the people that have worked hard, brilliant. The people who haven't, they're going to struggle to be given that opportunity, even if they really, really want to. So in terms of targets, it all changed. It wasn't all about KPIs anymore. It was about outcomes. We've been banging on about giving people drivers. So don't use a KPI. Helps you in terms of working out your conversion rates to work on if you're really good at finding the right people, or if you present the right people, are the right people, or are the opportunities the right ones, and look at the conversions for sales training and training of you and what you're good or not good at and how you should adapt yourself. But everything's been based on a drivers and outcomes these days. So if you're getting interviews, if you're finding jobs, if you're making things happen and doing deals, that's enough. Just so you're trusting people within working from home, saying that if you're good enough and you can do these things, then that's brilliant. And nobody's looking at the dashboard these days.
And I think, like you said, if you use this time as relationship building, when this passes, hopefully, as you said, we are in a freeze. Hopefully when projects start again and you've built those relationships over the last 2 months, when everyone's in this situation, it's a nice position to maybe be in.
I'll tell you what, Paul, last week, everything changed. Last week. So up until then, it was, you're just trying to push water uphill. And then as of last week, I wouldn't say the floodgates opened, but it got really busy last week. So I think everyone, the sentiment changed. Oh, cough. Right. I should be right. The sentiment changed in that I think the government gave us some sort of a headline in terms of where we're going to go with this. So I'm going to talk about another couple of weeks. There's rumours now that school's going to be back after May half term. And the moment everyone saw that, then people looked at the opportunity to say, I can get hold of talent now I couldn't typically get hold of. So literally, there were call-in requirements to businesses, and you don't get that. So there were loads and loads of agencies getting loads and loads more work. It was one of the brands that I work with has added 16K a week GP during lockdown. We've had clients who've you've never been able to get through the front door with, you've made friends with, who are giving you vacancies now. And as of, so last week was brilliant. This week might be one of the best weeks that recruitment's ever seen. There's a proper chance that we're trying to get back on the horse here. And that's really exciting.
What's the impact then if this lockdown doesn't lift at that sort of time? Let's say it goes on until September. Do you think businesses are really going to struggle then?
There won't be a UK PLC worth. Oh, fuck off. There won't be a. Oh, that dogs.
It's fine. The audio is good. The AirPods are amazing. This is definitely an ad for AirPods.
Oh, thank you. Cheers, man.
Is that your hand sanitizer, Gary?
Brilliant. It's my birthday. It's my birthday on Wednesday. I was hoping it was a present. It's like for Julie. I'm gutted.
What, you 32? 32?
Unbelievable. No, that's my waist. So what was the question?
If the lockdown lasts longer, what's the impact then?
There won't be. Come and show Paul. Come and show Paul. There won't be a UK PLC. Like but that if that lasts that long, it's not worth coming back. So look, I'll tell you what it was that we just had delivered for
Nice.
Thursday. Yeah, we're living the dream. We are.
Do you get the old pots and pans out?
In West London? Yeah. We're just around the corner from Harley Street, so we know them personally. So it's all right.
On that note, just quickly, Gary, you said about when we go back, there's going to be like all guns blazing from a business point of view. In terms of like employees, as I was kind of saying earlier, is like I think employees might struggle to go back with 100% motivation. You know, it's almost like if they're adapting to this, they've been at home with family, then go back into the office. I don't think their productivity is going to be 100%. So do you think businesses need to adapt to that as well? Go back all guns blazing, but almost in a way make sure they know that their staff might not be 100% productive for at least a couple of weeks?
No. What's really interesting is most people didn't want to be furloughed, right? But if somebody was furloughed, I worry at the moment because it was nobody's fault if they were furloughed, right? Mm-hmm. No one was blaming them. No one was saying that it's down to you being shit. It's just that. And remember, this is a recession. This is a bug that's come from Venus that's come in here and just actually destroyed humanity. And during that period of time, businesses had to just basically lean down. And it wasn't a question of you're good, you're bad. It was pretty much carte blanche. Let's try and just cull as many people as we can in terms of our cost base so we can actually make sure there's a business and a job for them to come back to. And I think a lot of people got quite depressed about being furloughed. However, if you're still being productive, so even though you're being furloughed, you can still do some research. You can still keep your skills set up. As jobs are coming in, so as of last week, people were being unfurloughed left, right, and centre. I'd say something like 20% of the people who are furloughed went back to work. So as of today, so that's good, right? So it's good that they're all coming back in. They're not all going to come back in on one day like an army marching through the door. It's the people who the business owners think actually these opportunities are coming in. You're the most appropriate for it. Not that you're better than somebody else, because I think people are going to start ranking themselves in the organisation. Say that I was the last one to be unfurloughed. Does that mean that I'm crap? It's not that at all. It's just based on the opportunity, moment in time, what we can and can't do. So someone from accounts right now, in terms of credit control, might be really important versus the best salesperson. It all depends on what's most appropriate for each business. So people really need to keep their heads screwed on about this, that they're not being ranked, they're not being rated. But when they go back to work, they've got to come through the door wearing trainers because everyone's sprinting, right? So don't come through the door just saying, oh, do you know what, I'm not really into this. Get your head screwed on, people. Come back in with that absolute smile on your face so that you're a gain to that enterprise and not a drain to it, and reflect that the boss has said, I need you, right? So imagine you're in a war and, it's, everyone's miles away. Well, a sniper right now might be appropriate. than the best hand-to-hand fighter I've got. It's what's appropriate. It's you've been using like a Nelson style of warfare. What's appropriate for us?
Yeah.
But if people keep putting their hand up and saying, I want to come back, I want to come back, I want to come back, you're probably going to be quicker back. And people should want to get back. You know, as a business leader, it's a brilliant job, right? You've got a responsibility to look after a whole load of people who are trusting you with their mortgages, their payment of the bills, they might be looking after their parents, whatever it is that they've trusted in you to do that. And you've got a fiduciary duty. You're supposed to be looking after them, but also as someone who works for a business, you've got to do everything in your power to help that business succeed and do its best. And when you come through the door, if you're going to come through the door at 70%, don't come through the door. It's not the right job for you. Go do something else. And if you're not in love with that company, don't work for that company. It's
I think
important.
that's the key part, isn't it? It's like if you love your job, if your job's meaningful, then you'd want to, like you say, be doing the research during this time, improving your skill set. You'd want to be, you know, starting to slowly work, then going back into the office. If the job's meaningful to you, like I look at me and I think if what I'm doing was taken away from me, it would make me even worse. You know, my mental health would be worse because this is a really meaningful job that I'm doing. So I think like people say, oh, you know, if you're furloughed, it's great because you don't have to get any work done. But if you really enjoy your job, it's actually a detriment to you know, how you're feeling. But I think it's really important that businesses communicate the way that you just did. You know, business leaders need to be that voice to let people know that, you know, you're not being ranked. If you're furloughed at this time, it's completely different. They need to have that over communication with staff during this period.
So what tips might you have for someone to maintain? Because we've got business leaders at the moment who are stressed to fuck, right? And you've got loads of people working at home who are depressed to fuck. What potential advice would you have in terms of do's, don'ts, and how to manage this process?
I think, like we've always said about it from day one, about, you know, it sounds so minor, but doing stuff like keeping a similar routine, you know, getting up, like you said, getting up early, kind of getting showered, getting dressed. If people just kind of grab your laptop, sit on a bed, try and get work done, it's not going to happen. Your productivity is going to be low. Your mood's going to be low. We've also said as well about expectations. Like if everyone expects too much from their staff, but also themselves, and you're putting on too much pressure, it can actually, again, be a detriment. So it's about, as you've said, adapting to it, lowering the expectations a little bit, but maybe innovating with those expectations, and just not putting too much pressure on yourself, because, you know, all we can do during this period is our best, and, you know, try and innovate, and don't put so much judgment on yourself if you're not kind of feeling as good. And then, as you've said, just reminding people that it's going to pass. You know, like this moment is crap, but it's going to pass. Like it will pass. We're all in it together, as you've sort of said as well. And I think it could get better. Like it could get better if we all stick it out.
So something that you've always said that's stuck in my mind is about putting your own oxygen mask on first before you look after everyone else. How do you spot if you are failing or need a little bit of help and support, or how do you spot if one of your staff members, you're thinking that, he needs more than a cuddle?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I'm actually trying to move away from that, in the fact of saying that, you know, everyone should be doing a bit of proactive self-care, looking after their mental health every day. It's like, just, we need to kind of step away from, this is someone who's really struggling and this is someone who's fine, like, because a lot of us are in the middle, you know, and at the same time, like, we should all be doing something for our mental health at least once a day. And, you know, I always talk about, as you said, proactively looking after your mental health, putting yourself first. So even if you don't feel like you're extremely depressed and you're extremely struggling, like, you should still be doing stuff for your mental health. It's like, you know, with physical health, you wouldn't, it depends, but you wouldn't wait until you're kind of on death's door and then say, I need to do something with my physical health. You know, you'd typically try and implement some kind of physical health routines during the day. So I think everyone should be doing something for their mental health. Like, it could be, as you say, getting up early, doing a bit of reading, doing a bit of meditation, going for a run, going for a walk, you know, whatever it is, like every day do something, because
But
I know.
Is there a way,
Well,
Bud, that to spot if someone is struggling?
I think behavior change. So, especially if you're in sort of a space, and this is where communication is so important. So we've always been hammering, jump on Zoom calls with your team, jump on meetings with your team, physically, like put the video on, and you can kind of see them, because if you're just maybe messaging them on WhatsApp, you're not going to understand, how they're feeling. But yeah, I think it's very hard to spot, which is why mental health is so different to physical health. Physical health is quite easy to spot in some places, whereas mental health is invisible. Thumb, look, you hurt your thumb. See, look. But I think behavior changes is key. Like I always talk about my dad, and my dad, his behaviors just changed like that, and that was more obvious. So we noticed it then, but what wasn't obvious, but now I realized, was more subtle behavior changes. Like, he wasn't sleeping as well as he used to be. He was kind of detaching himself from social situations. He changed jobs, and that was obviously impacting him. Like all of that was just dad's going through a bit of a blip, and he's going to snap out of it, because that was our attitude to mental health. But actually looking at that, there were behavior changes as well. So I think it's very hard to spot, but just try and spot some behavior changes. And if there is a behavior change, and ask them, like, Gary, how are you doing? And if you go, I'm fine, then I'd say, no, Gary, I've seen that things are a little bit different. Are you sure you're all right? Asking again, it's kind of a good way of putting it as well.
That's really good advice, because I think there's a lot of people who are struggling with this. And to be fair, everyone knows, well, I'm not really good at my own company. I've got my beautiful wife here. It's funny that during this period of time, it's the simplest things that make all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing that ever happens to me every day is twofold. One, we go for a dog walk. Right, it's like we choose what we're going to eat. We choose what we're going to have for dinner. That's a really big thing. And then I did some cooking the other day. That's never happened. We had to buy a pan because we hadn't had any. We live in West One, mate. We don't do that shit. We eat out. And then my daughter started teaching us all yoga.
Yeah.
And it's been brilliant. So she's absolutely fearless and very cool. And then she's like, every day I'm getting to spend some time with my 18-year-old with her mum in Cheshire. And yesterday was her and her mum and Julianne and I doing yoga together, which was brilliant. A bit messed up, but brilliant.
Nice.
But that's wonderful. But having that little routine of doing something every day, and it's really exciting to do. But also, I'm getting phone calls from everybody because they know I'm nuts and I'm not very good at my own. And it's almost like they're tag teaming in who's going to phone him next, and just make sure. I was like, hey, you're right, because I get quite a lot of calls. So I do 3 charges on my phone a day with people, just talking about helping support them. And it's just nice that actually people think to say, "Are you all right, mate?" Because it's
exactly.
So
and sometimes you don't want to talk about it. Sometimes you do, but it's nice that people are kind of reaching out. That's the main thing.
Maybe people should be phoning their bosses and just saying, for no reason, "Are you all right, mate?"
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they're having to understand the furlough laws and to raise money and to make sure that the grants forms are in properly and to reforecast and all of these other jobs that actually you didn't get in recruitment to do. You go into recruitment to sell and place people, and all this other shit that we're not really good at. We're having to get support with. So that's been really big.
And that's a really good point as well. And it's a two-way conversation. It isn't just, everyone says about top down in companies. If you've got top down communication, talking about mental health, culture will change. But actually, you have to think about the other way as well. If you can support your boss, if you can ask them if they're okay, if they can then feel supported, that's going to reflect on how they actually manage the company and manage employees as well. Just a good point.
Tell us about the app, because I know I've thrown it out to everybody at the moment. It's absolutely brilliant, but I'm not sure everyone knows about it yet.
Yeah, so we decided to give away our app every month at work for 6 months for free to businesses. So no obligation to continue, no hidden fees. It's almost, we wanted to give away a support option to businesses that they could use remotely. Being an app, it's kind of mental health support in your pocket. So employees will have access to it. There's tons of content on there around working from home, dealing with anxiety, how to deal with going back to work, meditations. And what businesses benefit from is giving them a support option for mental health. You've got 24/7 hotlines, text services in there as well. But after time, we're going to create aggregated anonymous data, analytics, and feed that back to obviously the business leaders. So, you know, we're not going to tell them that Gary is really struggling with being self-isolated and, you know, not being able to see his friends. But what we are going to say is on a sort of company-wide basis, you know, people are struggling with self-isolation, and we can feed that back to the business leaders. They can then communicate something to help them. We'll help them with that as well. So yeah, we're doing it for 6 months. And then once the 6 months is over, if we've offered value, then, you know, we'll talk about the paid subscription after that. But there's no obligation, obviously, to continue. It's just something we wanted to do during this period.
But it's cheap as chips, right? Anyway, so it's
like less than, I mean, we say we're a lot less than a coffee a month per employee, depending on obviously the size. But
which is brilliant. Where do people find it, mate?
So you can go to everymindatwork.com / let's do the Gary one, everymindatwork.com / RDLC.
Okay, beautiful. That'd be beautiful. Mate, thank you for your support with this stuff, because it's every time I'm feeling a bit low, I know I can phone you, and it's and you always point me somewhere or look on the app. So it's a mad time, but it's nice knowing that there's people like you around, bud.
Yeah, thanks for your advice as well. Appreciate it, mate.